Hey, I'm Mike Priest, the founder and CEO of Visible. As you scale your company, having the right guides at your side can make all of the difference. Each episode, we'll talk to fellow founders, investors, and experts. We'll dive into their zone of genius, as well as hear about their past mistakes to give you a better chance at success. This podcast is for founders by founders. This is The Founders Forward.
All right, yeah. So before we get started, would love to just get a quick 1-minute pitch on you and what you're up to today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Yaw Aning, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Malomo. So had a long career in tech. Started my career in investment banking. Then launched my first tech startup. It failed. Launched a tech consulting business with moderate success, and then Malomo was kind of a spin out from that consulting business, and so far so good. And then Malomo, we are a shipment tracking platform for e-commerce businesses, and so we help consumers when they buy from a direct-to-consumer brand get proactive updates on their order as it's moving in transit. And then for merchants, because we as consumers check tracking, 4 to 5 times on average, super high engagement channel, and merchants are always looking for this arbitrage edge for growth. And so we kind of turn that into a marketing channel where the merchant can kind of use as an opportunity to tell their brand story, remarket or upsell, cross-sell products, do all sorts of things with that real estate. So that's kind of Malomo in a nutshell.
Yeah. How long have you guys been around?
We have been around, so we launched the company, like the first product, in June of 2019.
Okay. So
God, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Don't do public math. So what, I guess next question we had scripted was what is going after the cold start problem? Did you go after merchants or consumers first? And how'd you get over the problem?
Yeah, good question. So we are a SaaS-based business. So we sell our software to, we're kind of B2B2C. So we sell our software to merchants so that they can provide this experience for their end customers, which are consumers. So I'll tell 2 stories. One about how we got our first pilot customer who didn't pay us, and then how we parlayed that into getting our first paid customer. So like I mentioned before, I ran a consulting agency, and we worked with a ton of merchants on the Shopify ecosystem, and so we saw firsthand our customers. We would build custom solutions around using Shopify as their e-commerce cart platform, but they need to do something innovative around consumer experience or build some software to help them manage their operations. So when we were working with those clients, we saw firsthand how much of a pain point they saw with the post-purchase experience. Number one support ticket they get is people simply asking, "Where's my order?" And it's number one by far. And so and if things didn't arrive, customers would complain and freak out. So we started to focus our energy there and said, I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of build a proactive SaaS platform that would communicate to consumers about their order. So we actually approached 2 of our consulting clients and basically said, hey, are you dealing with this problem? And how big of a pain point is this for you? How much does it cost your business? And they said, huge pain point, huge cost to our business when we don't get shipping right. And so we basically said to them, we've got this, we've got the SaaS platform built. At the time, nothing was built. So we have the SaaS platform built. We'd love for you guys to test it out and see if we could improve, if we could prove that we could reduce the number of support tickets that you're getting. And they all said, yeah, for sure. Would love to test it out. What we did was we would log into their Shopify store. Whenever a new order would come in, we'd grab the customer information, all the order information, tracking numbers, we'd throw it into a spreadsheet. And then when we'd then go and grab the tracking number, we'd go to USPS or UPS.com and get the tracking update. And then if the status of the package changed, we would log into their marketing platform and then send one-off emails to every single customer about their order as it moved in transit. Did that for hundreds of orders to prove the thesis that we had. And we kind of learned something during that process. This is kind of off topic, but I think it's relevant. Like, we learned that customers just like open those emails a ton. They really, really cared about their tracking. And so that's when we had the idea of like, oh, like this is high engagement. How could we help merchants use this real estate? So that was how we kind of leveraged our agency to get our first really pilot customer. How we got our first paid customer was we used that story and we went to so we did a couple things. We went to investors and said, you know, hey, we really think that there's an opportunity here. We haven't built anything yet. It's going to take a lot of kind of capital to build the first version of this. We got to integrate with carriers and e-commerce platforms and marketing platforms to make all this work. And so a couple of the first investors that we pitched, they were like, oh, you should talk to this company that's in my portfolio. And we got connected to one. It was a cookware brand, and actually had a hard time kind of getting him on the phone, the founder on the phone. So we booked a flight to Austin and was basically said, hey, we're going to be in Austin this day. Would you be cool with meeting up for us? And he did. So we did two things, right? It was like, this was a really great brand, like logo customer for us, but like no credibility. You know, we really didn't have like other customers that we could reference or the real value of this other than that pilot customer. So we did two things. Like we leaned into that pilot test just to show the results. And then we mocked up like what the customer experience, the consumer experience would look like for their brand. For them, one of the challenges that they dealt with was they got bad product reviews for people not caring for the pots and pans correctly. So they would either get damaged or consumers would assume that it was damaged, but they just needed to do some care on the pots to get them kind of back to new. So we mocked up like the post-purchase experience, a tracking page is like this educational hub to share with consumers how you care for the products or how you can use the product with recipes. And let them trial the product for a month for free to see the results, and the results were pretty incredible. So that was great because then they signed on as a customer. They were a really great logo brand. Lots of other e-commerce merchants like respected this brand and knew the founder really closely. So being able to reference them to get more customers in the door was kind of how we got over that cold start problem.
Yeah. Do you think the majority of the following customers came from that one brand, or is it, how many free pilots did you run before?
Yeah.
Paid? Yeah.
Oh man. So we trying to think back, like we did run a lot of free pilots early on. Because like our stance was like, people, this is like a new marketing channel, like, and even we don't understand like how it works or how it should work and whether it's going to drive the results that we think. So it was all kind of this assumption that we were trying to test. So we gave free trials to a lot of our early customers. Our next, so the first two customers we got through investor referrals like that, where it was, it was just a connection. As we were pitching investors our story, they're like, oh, you should meet with our portfolio company. Got our first two customers that way. And then the next 8 or 10 was cold outreach, where we would mock up that customer experience. And that was really a great selling point. And then we had these two really strong referenceable customers that gave us credibility so that we could at least get that first kind of pitch meeting to present the platform and the opportunity. Like indirectly, yes, like those first two customers definitely helped us get the next several, but we it was a lot of just cold outreach to merchants that we want to work with.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I feel like that's a really good playbook to follow for anybody that has some sort of service-based business that they want to turn into recurring revenue. It's like, first, find somebody you want to work with, like do great work for them for free, and in exchange, get testimonials or references, and then use those references, social proof, to then get paying customers. It's like full circle. Like, you've done it very well. So kudos. I've been telling other people to follow that same model. It seems to work. They're just like really stubborn. It's like, no, we're never going to do free work. It's like, all right. You're going to have a time finding or convincing somebody to pay.
It's so true. Like people, I think it's hard when you're the founder of a startup, you see how your product's going to work and you believe that it's going to work. Everybody else does not, right? Everybody else has a significant amount of skepticism. They're pitched hundreds of tools all the time, and not all of them deliver on the promise that they say they're going to deliver on. And so you have to prove it to them that like your product is going to work. And then the other thing that I think about is, like, at our consulting agency, we saw this all the time. Exactly what you said. Like people are like, this doesn't make sense to do these things, like give away free work, do like consulting or services work. Like, I need the product built, and I'm not gonna go to a customer until I can show them the product. And every single one of those businesses that we worked with at my consulting agency failed. The ones that actually succeeded were the ones that started as consulting businesses, because the customers, they don't care about your product or service. They care about solving their customer pain, and they don't care how it gets solved. So that's the only thing that matters, right? Solving customer pain. And the easiest way to do that is like, I have hours in the day and I'm a human, I can provide the service to you, right?
It works.
I mean,
at the end of the day, like, testimonials and social proof is the strongest marketing asset you have. Like, no matter what you mock up and send out as like marketing material that you're creating internally, it's not going to be as strong as somebody else vouching for your brand without like any affiliation to it. So pretty bullish 100%. On the tools that help do that. I was actually checking out a company called testimonial.io. I don't know if you've checked them out. It's pretty good. It's like a little embed that you can have, like, anytime anybody mentions your brand on social, you can like embed that, like put it on your landing page as like a backdrop to whatever your call to action is. I thought it was I've seen a couple of other companies use it. It seems like great sales collateral.
That's amazing. That is awesome. That's such a good idea too. It's so true.
Just tooling. Love that stuff. What is one piece of advice they'd give someone starting out or starting a company today?
Oh man, can I give two? First one is, like, it's talked about and it's obvious, but I think it's not obvious for the reasons that people should think about. So find a co-founder. Ideally, they're complementary, and there's a lot of advice around that, right? Like, you should not go at this alone. Like, you should build a company with people who have skill sets that you don't. The reason that I say it is, like, startups are a incredibly lonely journey, and you're stretched in so many different ways that are highly emotionally stressful. You think about your company day in, day out, the problems that you run into, like if it's an employee problem, like you can't talk to other employees about those problems. Some problems you can't talk to your investors or advisors about. And so you need a conduit to like have that sounding board where you are on the cliff's edge of like, I'm done, and they can talk you down, and vice versa. I've been working with my co-founder for more than a decade now, and I'm convinced that the only reason like we've succeeded is because of that relationship, of like having that conduit. Like, they're in the business with you, so they know exactly the problems that are going on. Advisors, you can only like give them secondhand knowledge of those problems. You can only spend so much time with them to get them up to speed. So that's the first piece of advice. Find a co-founder that you're willing to like work with for the next decade. and don't take that relationship lightly. And then the second piece of advice is kind of what we talked about before, which is like you have to focus on solving customer problems and figure out a way to solve them no matter like what you do. I talk about this in our consulting days. I would advise every founder that we worked with, like, you should actually use off-the-shelf tools, like provide a service, use off-the-shelf tools that already exist that mimic the entire experience that you want to deliver with the vision that you have for your product. And that's a really great way to just learn whether like this thing is going to work and solve that customer's problem or not. I think that is like the biggest thing that I think separates winners from losers. Just like having that, like, I'm just here to learn whether my idea is going to have merit or not. Most products fail because they don't find product market fit. They really don't solve customer pain. And so that's the number one thing you got to be focused on day one.
Yeah. I mean, it's never been easier to mock up an MVP too. I mean,
yes.
I code, but I can build stuff in no code tools and at least mock it up and give like a rough draft of what this pain point can solve for.
Yes.
I think like people with that mindset of just like figuring out something, testing it constantly, and it's like shipping and like gathering feedback.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Share before you're ready. Ugly solutions, right? It's like people will forgive a lot. Like if you solve their pain point, they will forgive a lot.
Yeah. 100%. How did you and your co-founder meet?
Yeah, it was super random. So I was working on a startup that I mentioned that failed, and was at the tail end of kind of like winding down the business. We had gotten a bunch of press, and my co-founder had seen that and just randomly reached out to me. It's like, hey, I really love what you're working on. Like, would love to grab coffee. He was in a job where he's an enterprise development consultant. So like worked very in a corporate environment, hated it, really wanted to start his own thing. And we just grabbed coffee over several weeks and just talked about tech and startups and launching new things and just hit it off. And so it was super serendipitous. The way we connected.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years later, still here.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's see, next question we got. What's a small change that you've made that's made a big difference in your life? Small change that has had a big influence on my life is like being able to like shut down. So working in a startup, it's high intensity over a long sustained period of time. It's super easy to not have the endurance to last. And so I've made it and I've hit burnout, right? Like where it's just like, okay, I'm done. Like I cannot run like this company anymore. I hit a wall. I'm just like, yeah, this is not going to work. And big reason for that was just like, I was working all the time. And so I consciously made efforts to like 5 o'clock, I'm done. Weekends, like I'm not going to work on things. It's easy to just pick up the laptop and sit there. I've extrapolated on that quite a bit. At Malomo, we just introduced 4-day work weeks, it's a big bet that we're making, but like knowledge work, you have to be super creative and it's like you have to move incredibly fast. And it's tiring, and creative workers, right? Knowledge workers, they need time for their mind to just rest, reset, recalibrate, to work out problems in the background in order to come back and solve the next thing. And so I've forced the company into that the culture mindset of just, you gotta turn off to be really, really great and present and positive at work.
You have to take periods of time where you're not thinking, doing, acting at work.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% agree with that. I think hustle culture is whack. I think it's impossible to think clearly when you're sitting in front of a screen all day. Like, I have all of my good creative ideas when I go for a walk or I'm just
Yes.
outside. Like, if you just, I don't know, like somebody said this a while ago and it's resonated with me. It's like if your calendar is super busy, then like your mind is just not, like, you have no clarity of thought. So
Yes.
again, like a lot of
Yes.
people now, it seems like more like the overall trend of the last 2 decades as we move from like desktop to mobile to like now metaverse, whatever you want to call that. Like we're just spending more and more time online. And like that trend's only going to continue. And yeah, I think there's just like way more to life also.
Yeah.
Just, like,
Yeah.
in front of us
Yes.
all day, like doing stuff
Yeah.
probably not a high leverage task if you're working all the time. Just like reduce the amount of hours work, figure out what moves the needle, double down on that stuff, and reap the rewards. It's like relatively
Yeah.
simple, easy
Yeah.
to say, like tougher to do, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah. Work always expands to fill the time you give it. Right.
right,
Like the more you work, it doesn't mean the more you get done. It's just like you find more things to work on that you shouldn't be working on. When you only have, for us now, 32 hours a week, and I've seen this across the team, like you don't have time to waste.
yeah,
So you have to prioritize the highest leverage things and put that on your calendar and block off time to go deep on those things, right? Doing deep mental work on those things.
yeah,
We did a trial of a 4-day work week in September, and most marketing leads driven ever, tied second ARR bookings number ever, did the most significant product release ever, like and onboarded the most number of customers ever, like across all 4 disciplines within the company. They broke records like that. I don't think that's a coincidence.
yeah.
Right.
Work, keep doubling down.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're doubling down. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, last question I got here. So if you had one ask for our listeners, what would it be?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So this like are you is this question like what am I asking the listeners to kind of do for?
Yeah, could be anything.
Okay, so I'll give maybe a kind of counterintuitive answer. So at Malomo, our mission is create lasting relationships. I between the when I was 27 to 30 was like the worst period of time in my life. I lost my mother to a long battle with cancer. A year and a half later, my wife lost her father unexpectedly. And then 6 months later, I lost my father unexpectedly. He was traveling overseas and got ill and passed away. So just like losing the closest people to me in my life was just in that period of time was just a shock, like a complete shock. And I look back, like when my mom battled cancer, like it was like a wake up call to like rekindle a relationship that, you know, I feel like we always, as I'm going to say kids, but for 34 years old kids, like we have this expectation that your parents are going to be there for a long period of your life, right? You don't expect that that is going to happen. And so when with my mom, we knew it was happening. Like I spent a lot more time with her, just like hearing about the stories that she had growing up, like trying to just get a better connection with her because I knew I was not going to have that opportunity. And when we, you know, when my wife lost her father, when I lost my father, it was like a punch in the face to be like, oh my gosh, like you don't have time. And relationships, at least to me, are everything. And so the ask that I have to the listeners is really like, are there any relationships in your life that you've neglected over a period of time? Could be work, could be personal, but are there any relationships that you can think of And I would try to nurture those things. Like from a personal standpoint, typically we're in relationship with others because we get joy out of that. You never know when you might run into that or lose somebody that you love. In business sense, the the world the world moves on a social currency, right? It's relationships are everything. Relationships open doors to you. They unlock things that you didn't have access to, and so being intentional about building and nurturing those relationships, I think, is really important. So that's my ask to the audience: is to think about the people in your life that you have probably forgotten about, and can go rekindle and connect with them.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I feel like most people normally have some business ask, like, yeah, check out our website. That was a way better answer. That's going to be the bar for future guests to be.
I love it. I love it.
Raising the bar by Yaw.
Yeah, I love it. But I mean, but seriously, like our first investors were relationships that I had built over 10 years, right? Which led to the second set of investors. Our earliest customers came from referrals from others. My whole company was built on, the employee base, people who knew other people who did great work, right? Those relationships matter, whether you think about it.
Conversation went full circle. It's coming back to social proof. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it, man. That wraps up questions for me. This has been awesome. Yeah. Glad we were able to connect. Super glad you were able to come on. Pumped to share this with everybody. Yeah, this has been great. Pumped to.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that a lot. It was a ton of fun, and thanks for having me on. Like I love doing this stuff and sharing stories. So really appreciate the time, man.
All right, man. I'll let you get back to it. Appreciate it. And enjoy the weekend.